Welcome back to the MDetroit podcast. I'm Dominic Waddles, and I'm with Mark Rosenblatt, my co-host. And we want to thank you guys so much for the tremendous support on our Facebook, our YouTube, our Instagram, and our Twitter. There's a lot that you guys have done, and we are very thankful for that. But we are going into season 2. Why don't you tell them about that, Mark?
Yeah, so again, thank you guys so much for liking, supporting, subscribing, checking out all our content, and we're so excited to bring you season 2. Just like Dom said, this season is going to feature a whole host of new guests that we are very excited to bring you. It's going to be educational, it's going to be entertaining, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And the first guest that we have is none other than David Alvarez III, a young drummer coming up in the Detroit scene. Dom, why don't you tell him a little bit about David?
I will be gladly to do so. You know, David and his podcast, we talk about Benny Green, him playing with the Clayton Brothers. We dive into the jazz cruise a little bit as well. His education in Detroit, getting it from University of Michigan. Of course, that's not in Detroit though, but it's in Ann Arbor. But we talk about his education and then also his practicing mastery and much more. So please tune in.
And without further ado, please enjoy David Alvarez III.
Well, David Alvarez, welcome to the MDetroit podcast. And by the way, you are the third. So It is really great to have you. We picked you right in the first season. We had a list of people, and we really wanted to talk to you just because you have shed so much light on us from playing with you on the Cliff Bell's jams at your D3. So we will definitely get into that later. And Mark's going to read you your bio first.
Yeah. So what we do, I don't know if you listened to the podcast that we just released, but in every single episode, what we do is we read you your bio, and then we'll go from there. So David Alvarez III is a jazz drummer, composer, arranger, and music educator based in the Metro Detroit area. The drum set was introduced to him at the age of 5, growing up playing in church. At the age of 9, he started to learn how to play jazz through a summer program called the Arts League of Michigan. Afterwards, for 8 years, he furthered his studies of the art form through the Detroit Symphony Orchestra's Civic Youth Jazz program, learning from professors and college mentors from both Michigan State University and the University of Michigan. He has graduated from the University of Michigan in 2017 with a bachelor's degree of Fine Arts and Jazz Studies with teacher certification. Since then, he has toured with Benny Green Trio and has recently joined the Clayton Brothers Quintet. He currently freelances and teaches music in Southeast Michigan. Now, David, what we like to do after we read the bio is we say, is there something that you would add or change to your bio that is maybe more up to date?
Yeah. So definitely it's been, in terms of joining the Clayton Brothers, so I joined with them in 2019. My first gig with them was in January. So now, it's been about over a year since I've been with them, and before the pandemic, we were supposed to have some shows going on, but those will be, I think, rescheduled for the time being. So, I think just that it's been a while now. I have a few gigs under the belt with them. So, I think I would probably just change that.
Nice. Cool. So we kind of want to start a little bit towards the beginning of, your education, because, you are a Metro Detroiter. And one of the common things that Metro Detroit, youngins do is they do Detroit Civic, and, your education also included University of Michigan. So can you talk a little bit about what kinds of things you got from Detroit Civic that, kind of further impacted your, your education and learning, and same thing with University of Michigan, how that kind of impacted your musicality and your experience as being a creator.
Definitely. Yeah. So when I first joined the DSO's program, it was actually before even that. In the bio, it mentions I did this summer program called the Arts League of Michigan. And before this organization, it's now formally known as the Car Center. But they had this organization where they would every summer would have this program for kids, mainly like middle school and high school students that wanted to learn jazz. And it was directed by the faculty from MSU. So I got to know Rodney Whitaker, Diego Rivera, Randy Gillespie.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 9.
Wow.
Yeah. So and it was funny because this lady at my church told my dad, why don't you go ahead and have David do this thing? And I really didn't, wasn't like, oh, let's do, I'm just a 9-year-old kid. I'm like, okay, yeah, like I have plans for this summer. I guess I'm going to do this music thing. But yeah, that's when at that time I was kind of just surrounded by those people. And after doing that one summer, Diego Rivera, he was actually a critical player and key figure in kind of my upbringing with this music. So shout out to Diego Rivera if he watches this. But he recommended my dad, hey, why don't you have your son enroll or do an audition for the Civic Youth Program? Mm-hmm. And it was kind of one of those things again. It's like, okay, like let me try it. So I think I was about 10 years old, and I did the whole audition thing. And when I got in, I started. They had at the time they had three levels of big band, and then they had combo groups that you would do. So I got in, but I was like in the beginner band, right. And that was at the time it was directed by trumpeter Chris Johnson. Yeah, so it was yeah, wow. It's super cool. Like kind of thinking about this, but the breakdown of it was every Wednesday night, I would devote my time to doing civic, and so what would happen, I would have these combo rehearsals, and at the time they were, I think, ran more heavily with MSU college mentors. So these college kids would just come and form these combo groups, and then we would just, kind of like the standard form of having a combo group in like a college setting. They're right. Picking tunes, they're teaching us about improvisation, and so I did that, and then I think my favorite thing though was just doing big band. That being my first exposure to big band, I just loved playing in that configuration. And so, and so Chris Johnson was my first director. And it's crazy because right now I'm 25, and I was doing the math one time, and I think when I joined and Chris was doing it, he was 22 at the time, pursuing his master's, I think, at MSU. So it's crazy just to put that in perspective, because every time when I think of, Chris Johnson or meet him, I feel like that little kid again, when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And, I was just like, oh man, you're like one of the people that mentored me. And so, and so I just stuck with it. I think the age out year was like when you had to, go to college. So I was just in it throughout all of my like middle school and high school stages. And it was pretty cool because there was another drummer friend of mine. Me and him, we were kind of like the youngest people in the group. His name is Nick Bracewell. I don't know if you've heard of him, but incredible drummer, great friend. Shout out to Nick if he watches this. But he and I were the young ones, and I can just see us, like as we were getting older, the groups of people started to change. So like when I first joined, we had So like Marcus Elliott was in it, Deshaun Jones was in it, Anthony Stanko I think was in it.
Oh my lord.
Raphael Staten was in it.
Wow.
He and I were in the same band at 1 year. And just a whole bunch of other people, kind of like the people that are older than us that are in the music community. A lot of them were doing this. Ian Finkelstein was in it, Michael Malice. So they were like, for me, anytime I see those guys, I'm always kind of just like, taken back to those moments when I was a kid. It's like, man, these are the people that I look up to, and I still look up to this day. So,
Right.
yeah. So that program, it was very unique. Like when it first, started, there was not really a program like that in the country. So it was a really, I consider it just an opportunity and privilege to be able to just study and learn about the music from people like Rodney Whitaker and Diego and Chris Johnson, and then people from U of M also. They came later on in my high school years, so Ellen Rowe, Andrew Bishop, Sean Dobbins. He was my instructor and big band coach at the end. But
What a good
yeah,
coach.
that was the
I like
kinda
the I like the coach.
yeah.
coach.
Yeah, the coach. So that, that program in and of itself was like really laid down the groundwork for not only me, but I think just a lot of the people that are here and that have done this, have studied this music. So we owe a lot to that program for sure.
Yeah. So, you obviously did civic through middle school and high school, and then after you went to U of M, I was just going to ask if you can talk a little bit about your experience there as well.
Sure, yeah. So I'll be completely honest. I don't know why, but for me, I just I didn't really do my homework, so to speak, in terms of trying where do I want to go to school? Kind of searching schools and
Right.
honestly, in the back of my mind, there was a part of me that was gonna go into another field almost, just to at one point I remember in going to U of M, I was strongly considering, what if I did biomedical engineering and jazz or something like that. I really I had no idea really what was going on, and I auditioned last minute for the U of M's program, and Sean, he put in a good word for me to Ellen, and she let me in and have the audition. And then once I started though, I realized, okay, I'm I need to go with my strong suits, and music is my strong suits, and
Yeah.
engineering, that's a whole nother ball game. And U of M, they have, such a competitive field or whatever. And I just okay, I'm going to do music. And so originally I was just a jazz studies major. And then in the beginning, after a few weeks, I decided to tack on music education with it. So that's when I eventually, ended up graduating with a teacher certification.
Wonderful.
So I was doing all my performance study requirements and music ed requirements. So kind of just balancing both. And it was hard. It was a lot doing that specific degree. And I remember they called it jazz studies with teacher certification. And it was originally a 5-year degree. And I remember just looking at the requirements, and it's every semester, you're almost taking 17 to 18 credits, the max that you can take.
Wow.
So I was definitely just kind of, doing a lot of homework, a lot of, trying to fit that in with practicing and getting ready for ensembles and whatnot. But, oh man, U of M was, really formidable in just shaping who I was, and especially, getting down to the nooks and crannies of your instrument. That's one of the things that we do, especially when we study with our teacher. And so Professor Michael Gould, he was the guy that coming in, he's the one that kind of whips all the freshmen, in shape. And it's okay, let me see your technique. What are you doing? And it's okay, why don't we work on this? You need to work on that. Just a lot of refining.
Right.
So a lot of, just foundational stuff and I owe to him. And then also Sean Dobbins, he was also teaching at U of M. So throughout my years, I would always kind of get lessons from both of them. It's like one semester Mike Gould, one semester Sean Dobbins. Is for me personally, yeah, I thought it was just a really great experience for me to be surrounded by people. College is like that moment where you get to like really like learn more about yourself and explore,
Right.
like who you are. And I felt like within the U of M community, I was able to just explore not only personally but musically who I was, through my interactions with other people. My best friends, some of my best friends are from U of M, and we're still like hanging out, keeping in touch. And so yeah, it was great. I learned a lot, doing all like the combo stuff and the big band stuff, and with U of M's program, it's like very interesting. I remember Ed Sareth, who was the kind of like the founder of the U of M program. And he explained the U of M program as kind of like, if we were to name it, like we would name it kind of like the John Coltrane School. Because John Coltrane, throughout the history of his playing, you notice like he was deep in big band, like in the early stuff.
Right.
And he got into hard bop. He was swinging and, always kind of swinging throughout. And then he started to, kind of get into his own thing and started playing a little bit more free. And so U of M kind of embraces that approach to the music, and so definitely my scope has been widened. I think to not only just not only to be swinging, that's what I learned to do and I love to do, but also to kind of take it a little bit further and and embrace like free improvisatory styles and avant-garde and in that nature. So I feel like overall I got like a really well-rounded just exposure to just music and improvisation as a whole. So yeah.
So I kind of want to touch on, you talked about you were taking almost 17, 18 credits. What is some advice you could give to college students that are going through that, trying to get their jazz studies or their music education in another degree? What do you suggest for time manage wise to keep up with picking up gigs maybe of the Clayton Brothers and all those gigs that you picked up over the time? How do you balance the time, or how did you?
Yeah. I remember being very meticulous about calendar scheduling. Like I would kind of like at first I would like take an index card, and like the night before I would just kind of go through my day. It's like, okay, what do I do? What am I doing? It was almost to the T, and I'm trying to get back into that, framework. But with school, yeah, it definitely helped me kind of just hone in on like what I needed to do. So I would just write, a schedule down. And when the day came, I just, did my best to commit to it. One of the things, I think for me, anytime that I had free time, I would socialize and I would hang out with friends. But for me personally, I'm kind of the more of like I like to keep to myself. So if I have that free time, I'm gonna like just kind of chill or like watch something on Netflix or do like a small gathering, small hang. And other than that, like I would just shed, and so like that was kind of like the whole thing. Like if I wasn't doing any work, I was shedding, work, shed, hang out, maybe rest. But all in all, it's just like being able to have the discipline to commit to the time frame that you're given. So like once you set it, like do your best to commit to it, and also just have patience with yourself. I think too that's very important to, because I'm sure we all have gotten to the habit of like, okay, we have goals, like we want to do this, we're gonna take these steps X, Y, and Z, but sometimes maybe maybe we don't follow through, or we kind of get lazy. So just be patient with yourself, and trying to figure out exactly like how to manage your time. I think that's kind of it. So.
Yeah. Can Can you talk a little bit about your experience playing with Benny Green and the Clayton Brothers, and how you got that gig, and maybe some things that you picked up playing with those guys?
Sure. Yeah. I'll kind of do a little backstory. So it started right during my senior year. I think it was maybe my spring semester or so, or no, I think my fall semester, early fall semester. I started to think about, okay, like what's gonna happen, once I graduate, once I get out, and I decided, okay, you know what? I want to pursue my studies more and go get my master's. And so then I started to apply. I was applying to Michigan State, 2 schools, Michigan State, Manhattan School of Music, and then also I was considering at the time it was the Monk Institute, now it's the Herbie Institute. So I was getting ready for those, and as I submitted my tapes, I paid application fees, all those things that you have to do to, apply online. And then it was, I think, the fall of 2017. I was just about to graduate, and then all of a sudden, I get a notification or an email. I think it was an email from Benny Green, and he asked me. And at the time, he was teaching at U of M, so he took the place of Jerry Allen. And so even before then, I in my undergrad, I should mention this. In my undergrad, it was just an incredible opportunity to learn from masters. So Benny Green was there. Even before him, Jerry Allen, I got to, I didn't study with her extensively, but I was around her when she was there in my first year.
Wow.
Before she left. And Bob Hurst, Ellen, Andrew Bishop, everyone there was just very powerful figures in what they did in their craft and how they taught. So Benny, I've worked with Benny. He was my combo coach at one time. And so he got to know me through my playing in that way. So then fast forward, I'm getting ready to graduate, and then he calls me up and he says, hey, David, I'm wondering if you would want to, come and play some music, with me. And, I didn't really think much of it. Part of me was kind of like one of those no, what is this about? It's just okay. And I remember, it was just an afternoon. I set aside time. It might have been a Sunday or something, one of my off days, and I went into his office, and he just started to ask me some questions, and then he's like, hey, can we play medium tune, medium swing tune, kind of asking me to play certain things. And then after that, then he just expressed to me, he's like, hey, I'm looking for a drummer to join my trio. And I was, that right then and there, I was like, oh my goodness, that when I think about that still, I'm like, man, I can't believe that happened. That's the dream right there. And so then, I said yes. And, for about 5 months, I started, working with him. And I remember before our first gig, my first gig with him was the Jazz Cruise. And that was in, I think, January or so. And that was January 2018. And I remember the month before, in December, November, almost every day I would go to his office, and me and him would just shed together. Him going over the tunes. I remember this was crazy. I remember one time asking him, hey, Benny, what tune should I be getting ready, for us for us in rehearsals, like what should I be doing? And I remember him simply just saying, I want you to know all of it, and at the time I think he gave me like 60 tunes, just like a book of tunes, and it was like, these are my arrangements, these are the standards that I do, learn them. And so I remember day in and day out just shedding, like listening to his live recordings, and really trying to commit everything to memory. And my first performance with him was on the Jazz Cruise, and that of itself is like a super heavy hang of just like all these people, all these like these masters, and like I was just like, what am I doing here? I'm like fresh out of school. Like what is going on? Like you have like Lewis Nash there, Jeff Hamilton there,
Christian McBride,
just a whole bunch of all of my heroes, all of our heroes, of today that are there. And I did my gig with him for a whole week, performing with him and David Wong. And one of the performances, and this connects to Clayton Brothers, but one of the performances I did, it was a collaborative performance with, it was called the Horace Silver Tribute Concert. And what it was, I remember Benny emailing me. He's like, hey, we're going to do these tunes, the music of Horace Silver. And he told me, he didn't tell me who was in the band. It's going to be with this band. I was like, okay, cool. And so then during that week on the Jazz Cruise, we get together to do a rehearsal, and I'm getting ready. And then all of a sudden, like, the cats came in. So like Benny came, John Clayton was on bass, and then his brother Jeff Clayton on saxophone, and then Sean Jones. Wow. So we were just doing the music of Horace Silver, and that was another heavy experience for me. And that was my first, or actually my second, introduction to John Clayton. My first one was I met him when I did the Disney All-American College Band in 2015, and I met him through that experience. But this was my second time, and I don't think he really remembered me at the time. But that was just another like big moment of like, oh man, like this is John Clayton, like I've been listening to him and I've heard him speak and teach, but like to be able to play with him, this is gonna be crazy. So I remember doing that gig, and after the performance, I was like, Mr. Clayton, thank you so much. It was so great to play with you. So great, just an honor to be in your presence. I did that with everyone, because it's just it's crazy, like. And like I was thinking, man, like I'm never gonna have this again, never. Like I'm never gonna be able to do this. So I was like, just say your thank yous and just embrace it and move on. And so then moving forward, I was with Benny's trio for about 5 months, and then there were some personal things that kind of made me to decide to kind of just to move forward, So like that time with Benny, it was short, but it was beautiful. Everything that I took from all of those moments and lessons with him, I take with me today. And like I didn't know, I mean, just being with him, like he always. I remember Benny always treated the trio as like a full size orchestra, and like being able to like pay attention to detail and learning the history of the music. And like paying your respects to the people that have really laid the groundwork of this music for us to play, all of those valuable lessons I like hold dearly to them. And so I just, I love every experience, every moment that we've had together. And then moving forward, it was in the summer of 2018. I was in New York, hanging out with family, and then it was like maybe almost midnight or so. It was late in the night, and I get this text message from a number I don't know. I look at it, and I think it said like Los Angeles area code or something, and it was John Clayton, and he was saying, "Hey, David, just wondering, see if you would have time to talk, chat. Let's chat tomorrow or something." I said, and then answered back. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I would love to. And I didn't really think much of it. I thought he wanted to talk about, something else. But I remember I was hanging out with my friend. I'll never forget this. I was hanging out with my friend, Julian Bridges. Also shout out, who's an incredible musician, classical and jazz percussionist. We were hanging out in New York. I was just wanted to catch up with him, and we were in this Italian cafe. And I looked at my phone and I realized I missed John Clayton's call, and I was like, "Oh shoot, okay, let me go." I was like, "Hey, can I take this call?" And he's like, "Sure." And so then I step outside, and then we're talking. He's like, "Hey, John, how's it going?" He's like, "Hey, David," and John. If you've seen John, he's such a bubbly person and has such positive energy and smiling a lot, and I can just tell that was radiating through the phone. But basically, that's when I got the call, and he's like, "Hey, man, in what we do, there's doors that open and doors that close, and speaking of doors that are opening, wondering if you would be interested in joining the Clayton Brothers." And so that was, and the rest is history there. I just, I don't know. Some people will call it luck, and maybe coincidence by chance. But for me, it's I'm always counting my blessings as a believer, as a Christian. It's man, God, this is totally from you. I don't know why you've chosen me, right. But I'm just so thankful. And so I really just count my blessings, and I don't know what the future holds exactly. And with Clayton Brothers, it seems we'll pick things up whenever things get back to normal. But I've ever since I've gotten that call in the summer of 2018, John, he actually, it's funny, he offered me the gig, but I didn't really get the gig yet.
Okay.
What happened was John, I think he wanted to audition me. So he sent me all the tunes. And again, kind of the process with Benny. He's like, "Here are all the tunes. Just sit with them, learn them." And so I took that seriously. I was day in, day out. All right, what's happening here in this tune? How should I swing? Whatever. And so then John, he actually flew me out to LA where he's at. And basically it was cool. He was I spent a whole week with him at his house. He housed me, and it was super out because I got to stay I stayed in Gerald Clayton's old bedroom, when he was living in the house. It was whoa, what in the world? But I got to hang with him, and eventually we did trio. It was me, John Clayton, Gerald Clayton, and John was kind of just feeling things out. He's okay, let's play a tune. First tune we played was Stablemates, and I was just kind of okay, here we go. This is this playing with these giants, and so that was cool. John was like, "Hey, yeah, that sounds good." And then we started getting into the repertoire, specifically Clayton Brother tunes. And then he said, "Yeah, I mean that sounds good." And he looks at Gerald, and Gerald's just "Yeah, man," And so it's and that was I think that officially sealed the deal.
Your heart was probably just pounding.
Yeah. It's just right. It's just man, oh my goodness, it's but it's so just being with John Clayton, I've already learned so much, and on the bandstand, that's really where you learn. School is where we're getting our foundation together and learning about the history of the music, or how to play, how to play harmonically, what to do, and rhythmically, whatnot. But I think ultimate learning, getting out of school and playing professionally, that's where you're gonna learn about life. That's where you're gonna learn about the music. That's where you're gonna learn about how to communicate with people. I think one of the biggest takeaways so far, just from these opportunities is, like not only can you play well, but can you interact well with people off the bandstand?
Right.
Because a lot of the times, those greetings, those conversations, like that can be what gets you the gig. People can see from afar, oh, this cat can play, and then if you interact with them, and they think you're cool, that can seal the deal. So, that's kind of one of the big takeaways, I think, just from being out of school. It's been about 3 years since I've been out of school, and just being on the bandstand. It's like that's where you're gonna get the most crucial and important information. Life lessons that you'll take. When you move forward. So
totally.
Yeah.
Man, you that was really, really good to hear, though. I mean, just about your experience being with the Clayton Brothers and just getting to that step. That's wonderful. And now you're back in Detroit. Of course, we're all in the Corona seasons, and we want to be safe. And I know the gigs are a little bit here and there, but you're back in Detroit, and we just want to know, you growing up and playing at Cliff Bell's, when you started to play at Cliff Bell's, when you started to play at Baker's and all the jazz clubs that are in Detroit, what are your thoughts about the scene?
One of the things I love about being here, the scene is, it's almost very family like, and it's good to be surrounded by not only your peers, but also the people, maybe they're like several years older than us or generations older than us that are around, but it's cool to be able to be surrounded by them. Recently I moved to Detroit, so I am like officially in Detroit. I live in the Woodbridge community. And I've told myself, I want to get to know my musician friends that are around here. I want to get to know the community, my neighbors that are around here. And it's just so cool that, especially the people that are, like I said, that are mentor figures in the community, that you can have access to them, and that you can really develop just a sense of closeness with them if you want. And I remember recently I did a gig with Marion Hayden, and it's she's one of the best bass players ever, to in my opinion, to be able to play with her and to be able to actually call her for a gig. At first I was like, maybe, I don't know, would she want to play, with me? But, she was all loving and she was open to it. And I remember a few times I went to a few sessions that were hosted by Wendell Harrison, and being able to learn about, the music from his perspective, and going to his house and just playing, those opportunities where you get to connect with the masters, that's so important, and especially it's crazy, I don't want to get too dark, there's this year I feel like we've been seeing people, they pass away, people in the jazz community, they've
Right.
gone on to the next thing. And we don't know when, you just, with life, you don't know when things will end, and you don't know when you can really see that person. And so especially now, I've just, I've really been wanting to live with the intentionality of not only do I want to get to know these people on a musical level, but also to just get to know them on just a person level, just on a human connectedness. And that's one of the things I love about being here in the city. You have that space to do that. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Nice.
For sure.
It's you mentioned the family thing, and we've spoken to a couple of people already, but they've all mentioned really the same thing, that the scene is it's very communal, and it's very open for new people, and also people that are from Detroit or Metro Detroit area, but are coming up, or anybody that's coming here, they're like they're gracious enough to accept them as they are and let them in the scene.
Totally.
Right.
One of the things that we're really curious about, and one of the main reasons we started this podcast, is because we feel like there's a lot of stuff going on in Detroit, and it's kind of like less talked about than, say New York or LA or something, but really on a level of like creativity, music, art, all of that stuff, there's so much going on. So what we want to ask is, how has Detroit impacted your life, and what kinds of, like, you're from the Metro Detroit area, but now you live there, you know a bunch of people. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, man, that's such a great question. My involvement with the city of Detroit, it actually can start even way further back, even before the whole jazz thing came to be. My dad, my family, we're from the Philippines. Before I was born, though, my parents, they immigrated to America, like in the 80s, to New York. And for 11 years, they lived in New York, in Queens, New York. And so I was actually, born in New York, and I was living there till I was about 5 years old. And then my dad, he felt called and led to move to Michigan to accept a worship pastor position for a church that was in Detroit. So right then and there, when I was 5 years old, we moved, and we actually moved to a suburb here in the Downriver area, city of Taylor. But my main church upbringing here in Michigan was in a church in Detroit, and most of the population was African American, and there weren't any. I was like literally the only Asian kid, I think, in this church. So definitely, just growing up, I was surrounded by Black culture, and I was surrounded by just the love of the community of Detroit, and specifically from this church that I was in. And so right from there, that was kind of just my foundation of really getting to know the city. And then, then it was, because of the programs like DSO, which was at the Max Fisher Theater, I would always, again, like come to this city weekly and just learn about the music from people that were that were not only like really, people that were professionals, people that knew about the music so well, but people that came from the city itself.
Right.
Which I think is, such an important thing. Like Rodney Whitaker, who comes to mind, he's just, he brings that sense of the sense and pride and joy of Detroit in him and through him, and that comes out of him through his teaching, and I remember that. But I mean, when I think about the city of Detroit, like I was just talking with my friend Kenji about, a lot of people actually, if you're outside the city, if you're like outside of Michigan, it's kind of crazy how like a lot of people, when they think of Detroit, there's kind of like this fear.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. There's this sense of like, oh man, Detroit, you better watch out. Like, it's like that there can be some dangerous stuff going on, and like they just don't really get the full picture, of being here. That like, man, this community is like, if it wasn't for Detroit, like we wouldn't have jazz. That like this is one of like the most integral cities that that contributed to this art form. It contributed to pop music through Motown. Everyone loves Motown music, but it's like, they don't realize like, oh yeah, like that's a Detroit thing, So being here in this community, and especially just being in it now, my eyes are just continually being open to just the beauty that this city has to offer. And maybe sometimes like if you drive around the city, like you see a lot of buildings that could be like burned off, or like like landscape that doesn't look great. But I mean, it's part of me is like, man, like that's what makes this city like so unique, like it kind of has like this, like there's this like almost like this toughness to it, like I remember I was telling my friend Kenji, I was like, man, I need to get that shirt that I saw Trinino Lowe had on. He would wear a lot, the Detroit versus everybody.
Yep.
Like that, like when I think about Detroit, it's like, man, I'm so proud to be here. I'm so proud of this city, and I'm so proud of like historically, there were a lot of things that happened that were negative, sure, but I mean, this is a city that like fights hard, that like pushes through, like that fist that Joe Louis fist, that means something, and like like you don't mess with Detroit, man. Like we're this is and like I just have to make sure that I say this, like I'm very new to the city in the sense of like like in terms of being a part of it, like it's new that I'm like a resident of Detroit, and I know that I have so much to learn in being here, but I'm just looking forward to that. I'm so excited because the people that are here, what I can learn from being here, it's all gonna just be for my benefit. I know that it's gonna be for my benefit in how I pursue this music and how I think about the world around me. So I'm excited. I'm excited. I guess you would say I'm in a learning stage right now, and while I'm here, I'm just gonna take every opportunity that I can to just to learn in every avenue possible about this city, because it is, it's a dope city. Detroit versus everybody, for real, any day.
It's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that, because like we had this. People say the same thing. You go out of the country, people are saying that kind of thing. But like you mentioned something like the Detroit versus everybody, and then jazz, Detroit being an integral part of jazz, pop, electronic music, a bunch of art. Detroit has so much roots, like there's a lot of roots here. And then, Detroit versus everybody, that's like a thing. And now you see a bunch of these like new fashion brands that are doing like New York versus everybody, Los Angeles versus everybody, like a bunch of this also. It's like, man, Detroit did it first.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. It's like even just think it like I don't know. This just popped into my mind, but like cars, like, like
roads,
bruh,
like
would not be here.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for us.
It's so
okay,
silly
though.
to think.
Yeah,
not really.
You're so right. I love how you pointed that out. It's like there's a lot of like roots here, and like a lot of just like that are just a lot of things here that come from this city, that just started here, and it just like it affected the world, and I think I want to be a part of a city like that, or a community like that, where it's like, you can start something and it has the ability to affect not only locally, but eventually nationally, and then eventually internationally, so Detroit is the place to do that.
Really is.
So, what are the kinds of things that you're doing right now in the pandemic? You mentioned that you have a couple of gigs lined up, and we saw the live stream with Marion and Jacob, which was great, by the way. But what kinds of things are you doing to like stay productive, or if not, like maybe are you just kind of like hanging out and waiting it out? So how is your pandemic situation right now?
Yeah, so Um, when the early on in the pandemic, like right when, like I think mid-March, that's kind of when it started happening, the shutdown and everything. Um, I decided to, apply for unemployment, and that definitely worked in huge favor. Um, and eventually, I just decided, okay, like let me kind of start digging into recording, recording from home. So I started investing in some gear and some microphones. I bought this nice Scarlett audio interface, for my drums and a bunch of other equipment. Yeah. And so then I started to just kind of dive into recording, and then it was cool because it's like right when that happened, I started to get a few calls to do projects from home. I think that's when like everyone kind of just started to adapt to the situation. So I did one of my friends, he goes to the Columbia School in Chicago, guitarist, and he asked me to, hey, can you lay down tracks, for this thing that I'm doing for my senior recital project. So I started to do that. I started to dabble into, with that comes into like getting into know like what Logic is, like working with the DAW. Started to like dabble a little bit into like producing, making beats, like nothing serious at all, but just kind of like getting into that work. And then other than that, it's funny, I would talk with some people and I would say, other musicians, and I would say, yeah, like majority of the time we're actually, even before the pandemic, at least for me, like I would just kind of be just, at home indoors until I had to go to the gig at night. So other than that, like other than like doing all of this stuff, recording and messing around with producing, I would just be in the shed, making sure that everything's cool, working on technique, working on, I've been getting into the sound of certain drummers. So like Elvin Jones, he's someone that I don't gravitate to naturally. So I was just like kind of making it a project these past few months to just check him out and learn some solos and learn some, some of his vocabulary. And then also, this is interesting. This is going to be a shift, kind of from the musical side. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm, for me, I follow Christianity. I follow the teachings of Jesus, and one of the things that I've started to do is to look a little deeper into that. What is my faith? Exactly. And I've been taking this online course that's 12 weeks right now, and I'm currently in the middle of it, to just learn more about my faith and to learn about why I believe what I believe, and how I can share that with others, with gentleness and respect, and with courtesy, and to have an open dialogue with other people about worldviews, so to speak. So that's kind of been, at the forefront. I have this music thing happening. I've been teaching, music, like playing, practicing. I also teach still. I have, students that I teach, private lessons, whatnot. But also, when it comes to my faith, and just kind of learning more about it, and how to communicate that effectively and with love, that's kind of been what I've been working on. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Well, since you're still talking about a little bit of practicing with some Jesus in it, I love doing that too, because sometimes you just really get in the spirit, and like you just start going in, and you're like,
you a believer,
"Ooh,
Dominus?
Man, I'm swinging and I'm blessing." Come on now. All right,
man.
but
that's funny.
your practice and mastering. I remember when I first came to the D3 because Lewis told me, it was like, hey, David Alvarez has a thing. I was just like, oh, he's the guy who subbed for you that one day. And then I went and it was like, oh, great. But I noticed you're just so tight and you're so clean and you practice. And we want to talk about how you practice your techniques and things that you practice to get better at playing the music that, jazz.
Sure.
And all types of genres as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What comes to mind, I remember in undergrad, I mentioned before, like, I was like, okay, like, if I'm not doing homework or, like, in class, I'm, like, mainly in the shed, like, majority of the time. A lot of it is, like, almost, like, fundamental stuff, that I work on. Just, like, the basics of, like, I have a pair of sticks, but just, like, basics of, like, okay, like, what's happening with, like, the motions that I'm making, with my wrists. And I would just, sometimes I would do a routine where I'm just playing eighth notes, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And, like, it's just, it sounds boring and, like, it can be monotonous and, totally. But, for me, it's like, okay, if I want to execute anything musically, it starts from having a really deep foundation of just the nature of your instrument. And so for drums, it's all about, getting the hands and also the feet together. And that's for me, I'm working on, like, kind of like playing with my bass drum, how I can play that faster, how I can play that cleaner, how I can play that, how I can play anything with it. That's what I'm working on. But, my routine would be like, okay, like, hit like a track, put on something from Spotify, mainly like a bumpin' like pop track or something, and just like go away, just like playing eighth notes, ding 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 ding, and I'm looking at my hands. I'm okay. Are my hands cool? Am I being relaxed? Am I playing with good posture? And then from there, I would, for me, like I'm a total like, kind of book nerd when it comes to like music books. And so I have like these stacks of books of like drum books and everything that are just coming from different varieties of authors and whatnot, and stuff that I picked up from school. But I would spend time, with maybe like 3 books, and I would just go through, okay, like this book is on developing coordination, coordination between the hands and feet. And so I would just kind of go through this book and make sure I can play it and explore all the possibilities that it entails. Another book I'm working on right now, it deals with playing rudiments. For those that don't know, rudiments are like, there are these like specific patterns that drummers play, specific sticking patterns that they play, between the rights and the lefts. And there's like so many different combinations of them. And so I would practice that. Historically speaking, Philly Joe Jones, if you like listen to how he solos, it's kind of very in that nature, very rudimental. It's like, it sounds like machine guns going off, all of these different rolls and like, different rudiments that he's like putting into practice. And so that was a big part of his thing, is like, get your rudiments together. And so that's one of my primary goals in practicing, is like, okay, let me get my rudiments together. Let me get my hands, my technique together so that I can play cleanly and effectively. And also like, not just putting it into practice, but also like, I think practicing is also this, like what you listen to. And I remember I took a few lessons from the great Kenny Washington, jazz drummer. And I remember he said this, he's like, man, like, before you can get it in here, you got to get it in here. You got to get it in between, your dome piece, your monitors. These are your original monitors, And so I've embraced that idea a little bit more, in that, if if I'm not physically practicing on the drums, then I need to be practicing by listening. And so listening to records, listening to a whole bunch of stuff, within the jazz idiom. But listening, it informs that tells you what you like or dislike, And so for me, like when you said, Dominic, that I play like clean, it's because I'm listening to people like, primarily it's like people like Roy Haynes, Philly Joe Jones, Lewis Hayes, Detroit, and just people like drummers of that caliber where the way that they improvise and express themselves is very clear and precise, and that that has definitely informed just how I guess come up with my ideas and how I improvise and how I practice ultimately. So yeah.
What is something that you will never forget, whether that's a quote or a concept that you use constantly?
Good question. Let me just think about it for a second.
Utilize the dome piece.
Yeah.
Turn on the monitor.
Yeah, I say this to my students when I teach. It's this idea that if you want to learn how to play fast, you have to learn how to play slow. And I actually heard this idea from another drummer. This drummer Ulysses Owens. He did a live stream.
Yes.
And he was talking about just that similar thing of, if you want to play fast, you just have to play it slow. And so I think a lot of the times what I see from beginner drummers that may be learning how to play jazz drums for the first time, and even myself, I'm not excluded. Sometimes I think we don't have the patience to just take it slow, like to really take it slow. And again, the great Kenny Washington, I remember we were going over this snare piece from this book that Philly Joe would work out of. And he just was like, okay, play it. I played it. Like, oh, hope I do a good job. Here I go. I'm playing it maybe like this tempo. And then we get done with it and he's like, no, man. You got to take it slow. And so what ended up happening was, like, for the next hour or so, we're like taking it like this and we're going bar by bar. He's like, all right, ba, do, good. I was like, play that, okay. Ba, yeah. And we're doing that for like almost every single bar that we're dealing with, and that's like that, for me, that's like, okay, that's paying attention to detail. Like I think in jazz music, like you have to be able to go there to be able to really take things, really kind of zoom in with a magnifying glass, so to speak, when it comes to practicing, these things. And so that stuck with me. It's like if I want to play fast, you gotta just take it slow. Like don't be in a rush. Like I tell my students, it's good. I prefer accuracy over speed because a lot of the times they'll play me something. Maybe they're reading a piece of music, or I'm asking them to play like a rock groove or something, and they would just typically kind of rush through it. Like first when they play it slow, they're like, okay, doom, 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 and they're like, okay, oh yeah, I got it. So dude, it's just like, right. No, stop, like. Just live in that space of just taking it really slow. Because once you do that, then it's actually faster that way in your progress into being able to play fast or being able to play accurately or to be able to play, something that you can't because, you're taking it, at a not a great tempo for you to learn. So, so the fastest way to play fast is to play slow. I think
it's interesting because it's like when you actually play slow, you literally see all of the details. You watch yourself doing it. And so it's I feel like it's not like you're having an out of body experience, but you're having like a in body experience. You're literally experiencing everything, And when you cuz it's like obviously the goal is to try to have it without thinking about it,
Right.
But before you have it there, you need to think about it very deeply. So yeah, I dig that. That's a great quote.
So you clearly your hobbies, two of them is you wanted to get deeper into your faith and also playing drums. Are there any other hobbies? And this could be, if a lot of people know, because they've probably heard the Lewis M. Jones by now, but he talks about anime. So is there any hobbies that you have, maybe playing Mario Kart or anything with Eli and Brian?
Oh, it's okay. That's so funny. Yesterday I actually played Mario Kart with Eli. Nice. And my other roommate actually is Kenji. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I live with Kenji. Yeah, Kenji and Eli. Like it's like typically like now my day to day is like, okay, in the mornings I try to like read my Bible, spend time with God, and listen to some gospel music, and then maybe get into like, just kind of like computer stuff. I have to type out lesson plans or whatnot. And then I eventually get into practicing. But then at night, then that's when it goes down. I'm down. Like, I'm a homebody. So it's like, I'm down to hang and like just to kick. Like I love watching TV. It's so bad. It's just like, I mean, even in the pandemic now, like during this pandemic. So speaking of anime, I love Naruto. Have you guys watched Naruto?
I watched some of it.
Not really.
Yeah. My friend Meg Brennan, the saxophonist, shout out to Meg. She got me into it, and at first I was like, cartoons, like I'm too old. I'm a grown man. I don't need to get into cartoons, But then I like after one episode, like then second episode, third episode, I'm like, okay, dang, this is deep. Okay, dang, there's an overarching plot to this. And then I got deep into it. And it's crazy because Naruto has, let's see. So there's Naruto, the first series, and that has like, I think 220 episodes. Then there's Naruto Shippuden, which is like the next stage of Naruto's life, and that has 500 episodes. So I've actually watched all of these episodes. Yeah, I finished it. Like I started watching it like maybe like a little over a year ago, and then definitely through the pandemic, I was
burning,
going hard. Just
finishing it off. As one does.
Yeah. So
I must complete the show.
I'm like a big fan of. And that's the only anime that I've been watching. Like I haven't really been exposed to any others. So I mean, if you guys,
I got one for you.
I
got one for you. This is
okay. What is it?
So this is like one of the highest rated ones, and it's like before Naruto. And there's only one season, so it shouldn't take you too long. But it's like when I was watching it, I could only watch one episode in a day because it was so like. It's Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard about it. Yeah. Okay. I gotta check it out.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, obviously bebop is in the name, so like jazz and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of affiliated with it. It's not like huge, but it's like you definitely get like a bebop vibe from it because it's like there's like this pickup of like what's going on in the action and stuff like that, and then like the music starts to get like more energetic, and you're like, oh, okay, and it's almost like you're watching like swing happen through like action. It's the I don't even know how to describe it without like just be like, David, watch this show.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, that one is dope.
That's cool, man. So I finished Naruto, and then now they came out with another series called Boruto, which is basically now it's now the continuation of the story, but now it's Naruto's son. It's like now he's the focal point of but it's Boruto. It's like I'm kind of in it now, and this is so out. I gotta share this with you guys. This is so out. This is like supremely out. So I have a student. He's maybe at like I think 9 or 10 years old. I just started teaching him, and I started to I wanted to get to know him. I'm like, what do you like? Other than doing music, like you watch TV shows, you like cartoons, and he's like, oh yeah, I like Naruto. And then like there was like a light bulb, like it's just like, oh man, like will this kid be like one of my favorite students? I think so. But what made it out for me was that like, man, like I'm 25 and this kid's like 10 years old, and like I feel like I'm more geeked about this show than he is. And like sometimes in our lessons I like if there's just like a little downtime, I'm like, yeah, so did you watch the latest Boruto episode? And it's just that's just like after doing it, I'm like, this is so weird, like. And I feel like that's just crazy, like, with us, like our generation, like we've just grown up with a lot of just TV and a lot of cartoons, but like these cartoons are actually like continuing throughout, like into like the younger generations. Yep. And so it was just, I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, that's so crazy. To me, that's so bizarre.
It's like, have you watched Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like one of those,
Yeah. Yeah, I recently just, 2 months ago, I started watching that with my niece. She's like 7 years old.
What
and
a
I was
good
like,
man.
Hey, you want a new show? Like, here, check this out.
Yeah, and it transcends like age. Like it's just it's the message behind it.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is with Naruto too. Like there's like some deep felt like just messages about life and the human condition and like not giving up through adversity. Mm-hmm. So
totally
relatable.
I feel like most people call the cartoons that I like, because I wasn't into like Naruto. I was like into Huckleberry Hound and like Felix the Cat. So all of that was in black and white, and I was just like, yeah, you guys should be watching this. They're like, get out of here. SpongeBob is the move. You are tweaking.
I just watched SpongeBob yesterday.
Bruh.
Oh my gosh.
Throwback.
You need to get the DVD set. The first release one. I'm telling you, I've probably watched that first CD over 100 times.
That's crazy.
Dang. So that's season 1, right?
Yeah. I think the first episode is I Ripped My Pants, or
is it Krusty Krab Pizza?
It's Krusty Krab Pizza.
Totally Krusty.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's funny
because my pants.
Yesterday we were just hanging out watching TV, and then we all decided, okay, like, yeah, let's watch SpongeBob. And they're like, okay, like where should we start? I'm like, oh, you gotta go where it's like SpongeBob is looking orange, like that old SpongeBob, like go back to like the early episodes. And we watched the episode where him and Patrick first met Barnacle Boy and Mermaid Man.
Oh yeah,
that one. And then
it's Mermaid Man and Barnacle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a trip. Like watching cartoons, like from when you were kids, like as an adult, you're just like, wow, like there's some genius behind. Yeah, like my friend Kenji was like, man, there's some like genius behind some of this stuff.
Yeah,
but
that's like like Shrek. Like they made it for adults and kids, where they make like certain innuendos that kids will be like, oh, this is funny, and adults will be like, yeah, you bet it's funny.
Yeah, man, you got me going through like my whole repertoire of SpongeBob, because you guys remember the Krusty Krab employee video?
Oh yeah, is that where they talk about poop?
Yeah. Poop, and then
order
hoopla.
our patties. Oh yeah.
That's good.
Oh
Goodness.
man.
Yeah.
Well, I know we could talk all day about SpongeBob and Naruto, but we're gonna move on to our next section, which is called Hip the Listener. So Hip the Listener. This is where we have you, the guest, hip the listeners to anything, whether it be music, art, events, movies, documentaries, or whatever you want the listener to know about. Hip the listener.
Hip the listener. Okay. Well, I guess maybe I'll just start with music. One of the things, yesterday I listened to this record on vinyl. I think it's called it's by Lou Donaldson, and it's called Lush Life. And that record is maybe you guys know it. Maybe I'm sure like a lot of people have heard this, but it's a very unique record in that it's all mainly just ballads, and the fastest tempo they go is like, just like that. But it's crazy because it's very intentional in that, like, okay, he plays a ballad, and then the next one is a ballad, and then the next one is a ballad. It's like 3 ballads in a row, but the liner notes, if you read the liner notes, it's like he was very intentional about it. And it was very interesting reading the liner notes. He said, Lou Donaldson was saying, man, like a lot of instrumentalists, they just sometimes they don't do this enough of just going back to the instrument and just being able to like really play the instrument well, like getting like projecting with the best sound quality, not about like playing flashy or like, like playing all of these like intricate lines, but just like being able to play slow and to be able to like play with beauty, and that's what that record emanates. So, it's a large ensemble piece or large ensemble, orchestration, and it was arranged by the pianist Duke Pearson.
Yeah.
But the lineup is very interesting. It has like Wayne Shorter on alto saxophone, Ron Carter on bass, McCoy Tyner playing piano.
Was this like late 50s?
This is this is mid to late 60s, 1967.
Wow.
Blue Note, 1967.
Okay, because Wayne Shorter playing alto.
I know, right?
Or he's actually he's playing tenor.
Oh, Wayne Shorter playing tenor?
Yeah.
I thought I
tenor.
heard you say Wayne playing alto.
Oh, no, sorry. But it's Lou Donaldson playing alto, and then this other alto player, Jerry Digion, I think that's his, I might be butchering it, but he plays like second alto and flute. And then Wayne is on tenor. I think Art Pepper is on it, playing, or no, maybe Pepper Adams. I get those two mixed up.
On Barry?
The one that plays Barry.
Pepper Adams.
Yeah, Pepper Adams. But that's just a very unique record in of itself because, he's just playing just very soulfully.
Yeah.
And like, I think sometimes we can listen to music and we can listen to it and be like, that was very impressive. What they did, that was like, wow, that's what a technical feat that was, or like, wow, that's incredible. But other times we can listen to music and it's like, dang, like it really hits you like from within.
A different way.
It can just be like 2 notes that the person plays, and it's just like
this.
that can say just as much, or if not, it could just really like, put you in the spirit, like.
Who said? There's like a saxophonist who said. I don't know. I don't remember if it was Ben. Who's the saxophonist? The tenor saxophonist who played like pretty much only ballads. Ben Webster. Webster says he said something along the lines of like a ballad is harder to play. It's like the hardest thing to play well, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were mentioning that, and that reminded me of something that I believe that's what he said. Maybe I'm confusing with somebody else.
Yeah. Let me see. Is there anything? Yeah, I think for now that's kind of been my intrigue. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff I listen to, but it's kind of like all over. My brain's all over the place.
Sure.
So it's like trying to figure out, what's
You're fine.
Cool. We're gonna bring your brain a little bit more all over the place.
Stretch.
okay.
With some rapid fire questions.
Bloop, bloop,
And
bloop,
things
bloop.
off. All right.
Bloop, 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 bloop.
So get your make sure your pants are sealed, and you're ready to go.
Okay.
I don't know what that meant.
Just like you just answer like whatever comes to mind.
Yeah,
Like,
just
Yep.
like let's just
Fire.
go. Let's just do it.
Okay.
All right. Top 3 tunes to play with D3 Trio.
okay. Ursula. Martha's Prize, and Ray Brown's arrangement of Milestones.
Okay. What's in your current music rotation?
Ooh.
Besides what you just mentioned.
Right.
Oh, okay. Count Basie and Count Basie Orchestra with Joe Williams.
Mm.
And let's see, this Booker Irvin, tenor saxophonist, he has this record called That's It. Very like deep cut. I don't know. I'm just checking that out.
Is that the one with Max Roach on it?
With who?
With Max Roach?
No, I think it's with this drummer named Al Harewood.
Okay.
And
Maybe
I have to
think of something
double
else.
check. But yeah, very, very interesting.
Mhm.
And then what else? I think that's it right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Trio or large ensemble?
Is large on okay, has to be rapid. Okay. Trio.
Peanut butter or jelly?
Jelly.
Nice.
Good name.
Preferred method of listening to music?
Vinyl.
Mario Kart or Smash Brothers?
Smash Brothers.
All right. Cliff Bells or Blue Llama?
Ooh. Dang. Blue Llama.
Nice.
All right, a big one. Max Roach or Elvin Jones?
Elvin Jones.
And just a bonus one. Elvin Jones or Philly Joe Jones?
Dang, you guys are asking tough. Philly Joe Jones.
All right.
All right. Well, David, it was an honor to have you on the podcast for the first episode of season 2. We really appreciate you coming on. And is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say thank you to Dominic and Mark. Thanks for. I've never done this before, which is super cool. I've been on the other end where it's like you watch people like conduct the podcasting thing, interview and whatnot. But it's cool. Yeah. Thanks for thinking of me and being a part of this. I guess for everyone out there, it's just it's such an interesting time that we're living in. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of opinions being thrown out there left and right. There are a lot of sides being taken. But I would just ask that everyone, and including myself, that we can walk in love. And for me, the definition of love is that we're patient, that we're kind, that we consider others before ourselves. We treat people with the utmost respect and with courtesy. And that even if people don't agree with you or you disagree with them, that there's a way to, I think, have a conversation where those differences, they can be reconciled, and if not, then you let it go, and you don't let those differences define who that other person is.
Right.
That you love them for their humanity. You love them for the fact that they are a person of intrinsic value. That you love them that they're someone that has a mother and a father, a family, or they come from just a certain scenario or situation where, you're not. There's no way really to relate to it, but if you can show empathy and kindness, I think that's what this world needs more than ever. Is that this ability to be able to just love one another and to treat each other with gentleness and respect. And I just want to encourage everyone out there in the airwaves. And to know that every person is loved, every person is valued, every person has a purpose and meaning in this life, and that right now, especially for people our generation, our age, people in our 20s, even if it feels like you're just kind of in limbo, or those existential questions of life are coming, and it's just like, what am I really supposed to do? You're gonna find it. So hang in there and stay positive, and just
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
words,
wise words.
man.
Thanks for dropping that.
Really. Yes, that is.
Thank you, guys.
David, where can people find you?
Where can people find me? So I am on social media for sure. You can. So I'm actually in the process right now of developing a website. It'll be d3music.com. Putting that together. I'm putting together a Facebook page, D3 Music, but you can find me on my personal profile. Just look up my name, David Alvarez III. I'm on Instagram. My tag is D3 Music. And yeah, I'll be posting, I usually, I post, when I'm playing, if I'm playing somewhere. So I'll be at, hopefully, when things can open up, I'll be back at Cliff Bells and Blue Llama, and I have a date coming up at the Dirty Dog. I'm playing with a band leader in December, so I'll
Wonderful.
be there. Yeah, so I'll be in the Detroit area, and so just find me on social media. Message me. I'd love to get to know people. So feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram. Yeah. Let's talk and hang.
Sweet.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again for being on the podcast. And
Thank you for blessing us with your words.
yeah, we appreciate it so much.
Thank you, guys. It's been an honor. Yeah.
Man.
Wow, that was such a magnificent conversation.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on all our social media, and we hope to see you soon.